Thanksgiving used to be my favorite holiday, not for the turkey or the football or even the stuffing, though, I won't lie, my dad's stuffing was legendary. No, it was about the pause. That one long weekend where the world slowed down. Emails stopped, phones went quiet, and for a brief moment, it felt like nothing else existed but family, food, and the lake house. The house was mine now, technically. Inherited from my grandfather when he passed 2 years ago. He left it in my name, which didn't go unnoticed by my parents, especially my younger brother, Caleb. But I let them use it. I wasn't trying to cause friction. I live in the city, work a full-time job, and only visit the lake maybe a few weekends a year. They practically live there now. I paid the taxes, utilities, upkeep, everything. They supplied the drama. My name's Jeffrey, I'm 29, and I don't like conflict. I never have. I'm the kind of guy who texts, no worries, even when I'm seething. I send polite follow-ups instead of angry emails. I offer to help move furniture for people who wouldn't do the same for me. I just figured, if you keep being the bigger person, eventually people respect you for it. Spoiler, they don't. They just start expecting you to take the hit every time. My parents always said Caleb was the charmer of the family. The smooth talker. The funny one. He's 26, works in marketing. Well, he floats between gigs, but when he's employed, it's usually something vaguely corporate. He was always the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong. I was the steady one. Code 4. Boring, responsible, and easy to overlook. I dated Rachel for 3 years. We met through mutual friends at a New Year's party, and I thought she was the one. Smart, sarcastic, wickedly ambitious. We talked about moving in together, even got close to signing a lease, but it fell apart. At first, I thought it was just bad timing. We were both busy, communication had gotten strained, and eventually, she said she needed space. 2 months later, I found out Caleb had started seeing someone new, Rachel. My ex. He waited a month, maybe less, after we broke up. Claimed they reconnected by accident. That it wasn't serious at first. That he didn't mean to hurt me. My parents' reaction? Well, love is complicated, Jeffrey. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be with you. No sympathy. No concern. Just brushed under the rug like it was nothing. I didn't go nuclear. I didn't even confront them. I nodded, said I understood, and quietly removed myself from family dinners for a while. I couldn't handle the dynamic. Being expected to smile across the table while my little brother played house with the woman who used to say she loved me. I figured time would help. That maybe if I gave it a few months, we could all move on. That maybe, deep down, they'd realize how messed up it was. Then came Thanksgiving. The lake house was the tradition. Grandpa built that house himself, with his own hands. Every holiday, we'd pack it full of cousins, uncles, grandparents, dogs. Even the weird neighbor with the accordion got an invite one year. And this year, I was genuinely looking forward to it. I even took the entire week off work, bought a bottle of my boss's favorite bourbon as a gift for Dad, and started prepping a pumpkin pie recipe I found online that I was way too excited about. It felt like maybe things were starting to heal. Then Mom called. Jeffrey, sweetie, I just wanted to chat about Thanksgiving. I was walking back from the grocery store when she said it. Phone balanced between shoulder and ear, tote bag cutting into my hand. Yeah? I was going to drive up Tuesday afternoon. Do you need me to bring anything? There was a pause. I remember it clearly. Just a beat too long. Then she sighed. Well, your brother's bringing Rachel this year. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. A woman behind me muttered something, brushing past. Oh, I said. Didn't realize we were doing that. She's part of the family now, Jeffrey. And it would just be less awkward if maybe you stayed home this year. At first, I thought I misheard her. Wait, what? We just want a peaceful dinner. No tension. No bad vibes. You understand. No bad vibes. That was rich. I laughed, quietly, more out of disbelief than humor. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You're asking me not to come to Thanksgiving. In my house. Oh, don't be dramatic, she replied. We all use the lake house. It's not about ownership. It's about keeping things civil. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just said, okay, and hung up. Then I stood there on the street corner for a long time, tote bag still in hand, heart hammering in my chest. I don't remember the walk home. I just remember the silence. The kind of silence that sinks into your bones and makes everything feel a little less real. Like the world just took a step sideways and left you trying to figure out what changed. I didn't hear from them again that week. Not a single text. Not a check-in. No, wish you were here. or sorry again. I spent Thanksgiving alone. Ate takeout on the couch, watched old reruns, ignored social media. I tried not to look. I really did. But by Friday, curiosity got the better of me. I checked Caleb's Instagram. There it was. A photo of the lake house table, every seat filled. Turkey carved, plates full, laughter frozen in digital time. Caleb, grinning ear to ear. Rachel, right beside him. My parents, smiling like nothing had ever been wrong. The caption? Family together at last. That's when something broke. Not snapped. Not shattered. Just broke. Quietly. Like a hairline fracture running through something you thought was solid. I stared at the post for a long time. I could have said a lot of things. Could have unloaded years of resentment, called them out, told them what I really thought. But I didn't. Instead, I just commented. Cool. I'll pause the rent payments on the lake house you're using. 10 minutes later, the post vanished. And my phone? It lit up like a Christmas tree. Missed calls. Texts. Voicemails. First from Caleb. Then Mom. Then Dad. Over and over. I didn't answer their calls. Not right away. I let them sit in voicemail limbo while I went on with my night. A small, vindictive part of me hoped they were panicking, running around the lake house, trying to figure out if I was serious. If the water would shut off, or the lights, or the Wi-Fi. If they'd have to pack up early and drive back to the city with half a turkey in a cooler and zero dignity. I wasn't even sure myself if I was serious. But something had changed in me that night. Something quiet and fundamental. Like a fault line that had been trembling for years had finally split. It wasn't just about Rachel, or Caleb, or the absurdity of being uninvited from my own house. It was every moment that led up to it. Every time I'd been expected to be the bigger person. Every time I'd swallowed the hurt, bit my tongue, and told myself, this is just how family works. Maybe that's true for some families. But mine had always had a strange orbit. One where Caleb was the sun, and the rest of us revolved around him, especially me. I was the one who stepped aside when he needed space, who lent him money without interest, who covered his share of the Airbnb that one summer when he forgot his wallet, who picked him up at 2 a.m. when he totaled Mom's car and cried all the way home. But he never remembered those things. Or maybe he just didn't care. By Sunday, I finally listened to the voicemails. Caleb's came first. Hey man. Look, I didn't know Mom was going to call you like that. I thought you were just busy, not banned or anything. But come on, man. You don't have to be petty. It's Thanksgiving. Right. Petty. Then Mom's voice, clipped and anxious. Jeffrey, I'm really disappointed in your behavior. That comment was unnecessary. You're stirring the pot for no reason. Can we talk about this like adults? And finally, Dad. Only 5 seconds long. Son, we need to talk. Call me. I didn't call. I sent one text. The keys will be disabled by Friday. Make arrangements. That's when things really started to unravel. First, there was the group text. My mom, Dad, Caleb, and me. The one we used to use for coordinating birthday dinners or Christmas wish lists. It lit up like a war room. Mom, Jeffrey, can we please be civil? Your brother has been going through a hard time lately, and this is just making things worse. Caleb, bro, seriously? Are you really kicking us out? That's low. Mom again. Your grandfather wouldn't have wanted this. That house is meant for family. That last one made me pause. I stared at it for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. My grandfather, God rest his soul, had been the only one in the family who never made me feel like an afterthought. He was old school, sure, but he respected me. Taught me how to fish, how to seal wood, how to build a fire with nothing but flint and pride. He'd pulled me aside the summer before he passed, handed me a beer on the dock, and said, "You're the only one who gets it, Jeff. That house is yours now. Do what's right with it." That wasn't just a property transfer. That was trust. And I'd treated that trust with kid gloves for 2 years, letting everyone treat it like a community Airbnb while I covered the bills. Because I didn't want to rock the boat. But now I wanted the boat to sink. I texted back, Grandpa left the house to me. Not to the family. Me. You made your choice. Now live with it. Then I muted the thread. For the next week, I didn't hear much. Just silence. Which I expected. That's how my family works. Passive aggression first, emotional hostage-taking second. But that Friday, I got a call from Lisa. Lisa's my cousin. Same age as Caleb. We weren't especially close, but we'd always been friendly. She's the kind of person who remembers birthdays, sends thank you cards, and calls you out when you're being an idiot. equal parts sweetheart and blunt force honesty. I picked up, expecting her to say something neutral. Instead, her voice came in hot. Jeffrey, what the heck is going on? Hi to you too. I just got off the phone with Aunt Marlene. She said you evicted everyone from the lake house, and now Caleb's staying with her. I blinked. Wait, what? She said you're cutting the family off. That you're acting out because Caleb found love. What is happening? So they were already rewriting the story. I laughed. Lisa, do you know why I wasn't at Thanksgiving? She hesitated. I figured you were busy with work or something. No, I was uninvited. Because Caleb brought Rachel, my ex, who he started dating barely a month after we broke up. Lisa went quiet. Then, you're kidding. I wish. There was another pause, longer this time. Then she sighed. Okay, that makes way more sense. I was wondering why your mom looked like she swallowed a lemon when I asked about you. Yeah, well, apparently I'm the villain now. For making it awkward. That's garbage, she said flatly. I'm sorry. And for the first time in a week, I felt like I could breathe. But that breath didn't last long. Because the next day, I got an email. A formal one. From a real estate agent. It was short and impersonal, but the message was clear. Hi, Mr. Langley. I was contacted by your parents, Mr. and Mrs. Langley, regarding the property at Lakeview. They've expressed interest in putting it on the market and would like to begin the evaluation process. Please let me know when you're available for a walkthrough. I stared at the screen, heart racing. They were trying to sell my house. My house. I didn't even know where to begin. Rage? Disbelief? I called the number at the bottom of the email and asked to speak directly to the agent. Hi, this is Jeffrey Langley, I said when she picked up. I'm the owner of the Lakeview property. You spoke to my parents. Oh yes. They said you'd be reaching out. Lovely couple. Right. Just to clarify, they have no legal ownership of that house. None. There was a pause. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, I'm the sole owner. I inherited it. Title's in my name. They're just tenants at best. Another pause. I see. Thank you for letting me know. I hung up. My hands were shaking. It wasn't just the audacity of it. It was the betrayal. They weren't just ignoring my boundaries. They were trying to take what was mine. Rewrite the narrative. Remove me from the equation entirely. Like I was just a speed bump in Caleb's charmed little life. That weekend, I drove up to the lake house. It was empty when I got there. Thank God. The fridge was still full. Empty wine bottles on the counter. A scarf draped over the back of the couch. Rachel's, I guessed. I walked from room to room in silence, turning off lights, locking cabinets, gathering anything I didn't want left behind. I found Caleb's duffel bag in the guest room closet. I didn't touch it, just left it by the front door. On the mantel above the fireplace, there was a framed photo from Thanksgiving. All of them smiling, laughing. Rachel with her hand on Caleb's arm. My spot at the table filled by a vase of decorative pine cones. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I took it down, turned it face down, and left. I changed the locks that night. New code on the door. New keys. I even installed a remote security camera system. If they wanted to treat me like the enemy, I could play that game. But the war wasn't over. Because 3 days later, I got served. An official notice. A family trust challenge. They were suing me for unlawful possession of shared family property. And that was the moment everything snapped. I didn't say a word when I got the letter. Just read it once, slowly, then again, faster, this time trying to figure out if it was some kind of prank. I even turned the envelope over, like maybe I'd missed a joke written on the back. But it was real. My own parents, with Caleb's help I'm sure, had filed a petition challenging my inheritance of the lake house. Their claim? That despite the legal title being in my name, the property was always intended to remain in the family, and that my decision to restrict their access was in violation of that unspoken agreement. They used words like communal legacy, familial entitlement, and, this one really got me, emotional ownership. Emotional ownership. Like they'd taken my heart, trampled it, and now wanted to sue me for the mess. I didn't cry when I read it. I didn't rage. I just went numb. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment kitchen with the lights off. Just me, a cup of cold coffee, and the sound of my neighbor's dog barking through the wall. I thought about calling Lisa. I thought about calling anyone. But what would I say? Hey, so my family's suing me because I didn't want to spend Thanksgiving watching my brother tongue-kiss my ex? No, I just sat there. Rock bottom isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a silent Tuesday night when you realize the people who raised you are more concerned with comfort than conscience. The days that followed were slow, foggy. I went to work, smiled through meetings, nodded when appropriate, but I wasn't really there. I was just going through the motions, drowning in paperwork and spreadsheets, all while trying to find a lawyer who wouldn't laugh at my situation or charge me the equivalent of a year's rent just for a consultation. Eventually, I found someone. His name was Elliot Ford, mid-50s, balding, wore glasses with thick black frames, and had a voice like gravel. First thing he said to me after hearing the basics? "Well, Jeffrey, I've heard some twisted estate challenges in my day, but this one might just win a prize." I appreciated the honesty. He walked me through everything. How my grandfather's will, which explicitly named me as the sole beneficiary of the lake house, held significant legal weight. How the only way my family could challenge it was by claiming undue influence, coercion, or a clerical error. And how none of those would hold up if the documentation was solid. My grandfather had signed the paperwork in front of 2 witnesses, notarized, sealed, and filed with the county. He even wrote a letter, handwritten, explaining his reasoning. Said I was the only one with enough sense not to turn the place into a party dock. Elliot laughed when he read that part. This guy had style. But even with the odds in my favor, the process would take time. Depositions, hearings, mediation attempts. And through it all, the smear campaign began. It started with whispers. Extended family members, second cousins, great aunts, suddenly stopped liking my posts, stopped replying to texts. Then came the subtle jabs on Facebook. A vague status from my mom. So heartbreaking when greed tears families apart. A comment from one of her friends. "You're such a strong woman." Praying for peace. Peace. I hadn't even spoken to her in weeks. Then came the call from my Uncle Richard. He was my grandfather's brother, 84 years old, sharp as a tack, and had always treated me like a grandson of his own. "Jeffrey," he said, voice low and serious. "Your father came by last night. Tried to get me to write a statement against you. Said you were manipulating your grandfather in his last days." I blinked. "What?" He wanted me to say you pressured the old man into changing his will. Said it was the only way to stop you from tearing the family apart. I told him to get out of my house. I sat in silence. "I just wanted you to know," he added. "You're not crazy, and you're not alone." That meant more than I could say. It was around that time I stopped trying to win them back. I unfollowed my mother, blocked Caleb, deleted the family group chat without reading the last dozen messages. I started going to the gym again. Nothing intense, just something to get the blood moving, the fog out of my head. I dusted off the old espresso machine my ex had left behind and taught myself how to make real cappuccinos. I stopped watching their lives through social media windows and started focusing on mine. And somewhere in that quiet rebuilding, things began to shift. Work had always been a background hum in my life, something I did well, but never loudly. But now, I found myself staying later, volunteering for tougher projects, asking more questions. My manager noticed. One Friday, he pulled me into his office and said, "You've been on fire lately. Everything okay at home?" I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Yeah, I think I finally figured out what matters." 2 weeks later, I got promoted. Better pay, better hours, a corner desk with a window. It wasn't world-changing, but it felt like a foothold. Like maybe I was climbing again. Lisa started texting more often. Just little things, memes, updates, dumb jokes, but they helped. She even came down to the city one weekend and took me out for Korean barbecue. We didn't talk about the family much. Just laughed. Ate too much. It felt good to be around someone who didn't look at me like I was a villain. And then, something weird happened. I started getting messages. Quiet ones. From people I hadn't heard from in a while. A cousin in Vermont. "Hey man, just heard about the drama. Didn't know the full story. Sorry for ghosting." An old family friend. "Your mom's been spinning some wild stuff. Glad to see you holding your ground." Even Rachel's sister messaged me. "I know things ended messy with my sister, but I just want to say, you didn't deserve what they did to you." Each message was a pin in the map. A reminder that the story they were telling wasn't the only one out there. I spent that spring getting stronger. Not just physically, though I did finally hit a pull-up without dying, but mentally, emotionally. I stopped trying to fix things that didn't want to be fixed. I stopped apologizing for protecting my peace. And I started thinking, not just about how to win the legal battle, but how to take back my story. Because for too long, I'd let them write it for me. the awkward older brother, the bitter ex, the greedy grandson. But I wasn't any of those things. I was the guy who built the fire when everyone else forgot the matches, who paid the bills while they played house, who stayed silent out of respect until that respect was stomped on. And now? Now I was ready to speak. I didn't tell anyone what I was planning, not even Elliot. I just kept it quiet, calculated, and steady. Piece by piece, I started putting the plan together. I didn't wake up one day and decide to get revenge. It wasn't that kind of story. It started as a quiet hum. A simple thought I couldn't shake. They tried to erase me. Not just from Thanksgiving. Not just from a house I owned. But from the very idea of family. They tried to replace me with a pinecone centerpiece and act like I'd never been there to begin with. And when that didn't work, when I dared to set a boundary, they weaponized sentimentality and told everyone I was the one tearing things apart. And for a while, they almost had me believing it. But after everything, after the lawsuit, the silence, the betrayal, I realized something. I wasn't mad because they tried to take the house. I was mad because for the first time in my life, I finally said no, and they acted like that made me the monster. So no, this wasn't about revenge. This was about the truth. About showing them what happened when the person you always expected to bend finally stood tall. And once I made peace with that, the pieces started falling into place. The first piece was Elliot, my lawyer. He was gruff, efficient, and more interested in facts than feelings. But when I told him I wanted to go on offense, not just defend myself in court, but make a counterclaim for harassment and misuse of property, his eyes lit up. "Now that's interesting," he said, adjusting his glasses. "You're sure you want to escalate?" I looked him dead in the eye. "They've been escalating since November. I'm just catching up." So we started digging. First, we subpoenaed every expense and repair made to the lake house over the last 3 years. Why? Because guess who paid for all of it? Me. New roof? My dime. Refinished deck? My card. Water heater repair, septic tank maintenance, firewood deliveries? All me. And guess who never contributed? My parents. Caleb. The family who now claimed the house was communal property. Elliot's paralegal compiled it into a neat, 3-inch binder with color-coded tabs and a cover letter titled, "Evidence of Sole Financial Responsibility." It was beautiful. I considered framing it. Then we pulled old emails, voicemails, group texts. You'd be surprised how often people incriminate themselves with passive-aggressive screenshots. Like the time Caleb texted me, "Yo, can you cover the handyman this month again? I'm broke, lol." Or mom saying, "You're so good at managing boring things like property stuff. Thank you." Back when I was still footing the bill. But the real gem came from Grandpa's will. Not just the legal document. We already had that. But the video. Lisa helped me find it. Apparently, Grandpa had filmed a short video message for each of the grandkids before he passed. Most were generic. "I love you. Remember to be kind." That kind of thing. But mine was different. He was sitting in the lake house living room, wearing his old fishing vest and holding a mug with a chipped handle. He looked tired but clear-eyed. "If you're seeing this, Jeff," he said, "then you've probably had to put up with a lot more nonsense than you deserve. And I'm sorry. I always knew they'd come for the house. That they'd act like it belonged to everyone. But it doesn't. It belongs to you. Not because you're the oldest, or the quietest, or the most responsible, though you are, but because you saw it for what it really was. Not a party spot. Not a summer rental. A home. You respected that. And that's why it's yours." I watched that video twice. The second time with tears in my eyes. Elliot watched it once and said, "Yeah, we're going to win." But legal victory wasn't enough. Because even if the judge ruled in my favor, they'd walk away claiming I lawyered up to silence them. That I used money to cut out my own family. I knew how they spun stories. I'd lived with it my whole life. So I started working on something else. Something quieter. Personal. I reached out to the county building department and requested renovation permits filed on the lake house since Grandpa's passing. Not because I needed them for court, but because I was curious. And what I found was interesting. 3 permits had been filed over the past year. One for a new hot tub, one for a screened-in porch addition, and one for a private dock extension. I hadn't signed off on any of them, which meant someone forged my signature. It was Caleb. I could tell by the loopy L in Langley and the fact that he spelled Jeffrey wrong, Jeffrey, on one of the forms. I nearly laughed out loud. That was felony-level stupid. Elliot nearly choked on his coffee when I showed him. Do you want to press charges? He asked. Not yet, I said. Let's keep that in our back pocket. I wasn't done digging. Next, I reached out to an old friend of Grandpa's, a man named Walt, who used to co-own the local bait and tackle shop before retiring. Grandpa had mentioned him a few times as a kind of informal witness to the will process. I asked if he'd be willing to make a statement. He said yes, on one condition. I want you to fight them hard, he said. Your grandfather hated how entitled they acted. He told me once, if they ever tried to take that house from you, he hoped you'd bury them in paperwork. Working on it, I said. And then came the final piece, the lake house usage logs. See, when I installed the new security system, it came with a feature I hadn't even thought about, a detailed digital log of every time the smart lock was accessed. Every entry, every exit, timestamped. And guess what? Caleb had been bringing people to the house every weekend. Friends, dates, even hosted what looked like a birthday party. I could tell by the sudden flood of motion-triggered clips and the fact that a banner in one of the videos read, Happy 27th, Caleb. That wasn't just bad taste. That was unauthorized use of private property. And then there was Rachel. She showed up too, multiple times. Alone, once with a suitcase. I sat on that detail for a while. Let it sit in my stomach like a cold stone. I didn't feel heartbreak, not anymore. Just a strange mix of disgust and clarity. They weren't a family. They were squatters with blood ties. And it was time to evict them properly. But before I pulled the pin, I wanted to set the stage. So I reached out to a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, Andrew. He worked in real estate photography. I asked if he could do me a favor, stage a fake listing for the lake house. Nothing official, just a photo series. Clean, beautiful shots. Highlight the improvements I'd made. The updated kitchen, the refinished floors, the new dock. Make it look like a dream vacation home. He didn't ask questions, just did it. Then I posted it on my personal social media with a caption that read, thinking of finally selling the old lake house. So many memories, so much history, time to let go. Within an hour, I had 20 messages. Half were distant relatives asking if it was really for sale. The other half were guilt-laced essays from my parents and Caleb begging me to reconsider. Mom wrote, "This is going too far. The house is the heart of the family." I replied, "Then maybe the family should have protected it." Caleb called. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent him a photo. One from the security camera. Him on the dock, beer in hand, wearing a t-shirt that said Lake Life. Rachel in the background. Captioned it, "Trespassing's not a good look." 10 seconds later, he blocked me. I laughed. Then I made my final move. I called a meeting. Not a legal one. A family one. I told them I wanted to clear the air, one last chance to make things right. I didn't say where, just told them to meet me at the lake house on Saturday at 4 p.m. Caleb, Mom, Dad. I even told them Rachel could come if they wanted. They all said yes. They showed up 5 minutes late. Dad in his business casual jacket, the same one he wore to every graduation and guilt trip. Mom with her faux-concerned frown and oversized purse that she always clutched like she was one emotional conversation away from pulling out tissues. And Caleb, sunglasses on, arms crossed. The confident smirk already forming like this was just another one of his Quicksilver smooth talk recoveries. Rachel didn't come, probably for the best. By then, even she must have sensed the ship was sinking. I was already inside the lake house, sitting in Grandpa's old recliner. I didn't stand when they walked in, just gestured toward the couch. Caleb scoffed. "What is this? An intervention?" "No," I said calmly. "It's a reckoning." Dad bristled. "Jeffrey, we agreed to meet to resolve this, not escalate." I tilted my head. "You sued me, forged my signature, tried to sell a property that doesn't belong to you. That's not resolution, that's warfare." Mom jumped in. "You're being dramatic. We were just trying to keep the family together. By cutting me out of it." I asked. That shut her up. I let the silence sit. Let it get heavy. Then I reached over and pressed a button on the remote. The TV screen above the fireplace flickered to life. First image, Caleb's forged signature on the dock permit, side by side with his actual signature on an old birthday card. County office confirmed it. "You forged a permit for a dock expansion on my property. That's a felony, by the way." Caleb blinked. "It's not a big deal. It is when the county launches an investigation." I cut in. "They're opening a case. I haven't filed charges yet, but I will." He opened his mouth, then closed it. like a fish slowly realizing the hook is already in its mouth. Second image, security cam footage. A party. Music. Lights. A drunk girl falling into the lake. Caleb high-fiving someone. Rachel leading people through the house with a red Solo cup in hand. Unauthorized gatherings. Multiple times. Caught on a system you didn't even realize was recording you. I didn't know. Exactly. You didn't know because you never asked. Just assumed you had the right to do whatever you wanted. You didn't even pay utilities. I clicked again. Next image, a screenshot of the real estate agent's email, with my name at the top, and a follow-up from her confirming that my parents claimed ownership and requested to begin the sale process. Fraud, I said simply. You tried to sell my property by misrepresenting yourselves as owners. That alone could cost you thousands in legal fees. Jeffrey, Mom said, her voice trembling now. We never meant to. To what? I asked. To erase me? To lie? To profit off something Grandpa entrusted to me because you couldn't respect it? Dad stood, suddenly all fire and thunder. We built this family. That house was our legacy. No, I said sharply, standing now too. You built an illusion. One where Caleb could do no wrong. One where my silence meant approval. One where my willingness to pay meant I didn't deserve a voice. But here's the truth. I was never the weak one. I was just waiting. They all stared at me. I saw it then, really saw it. The fear. The confusion. The moment they realized the story they'd written had a main character they'd forgotten existed. I'm not here to argue. I continued. I'm here to deliver terms. Caleb scoffed again. This isn't court. No, I said, but it will be. Unless you agree to the following. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the coffee table. Inside, a formal agreement, drafted by Elliot, signed and notarized, outlining the following conditions. Immediate withdrawal of the lawsuit with prejudice, meaning it could never be filed again. Public retraction of all claims regarding shared ownership or undue influence over Grandpa's will. A formal apology letter to be sent to the court and to me. Reimbursement of all legal fees incurred during the defense, estimated at $14,287 and rising. A permanent ban on using the lake house property, including physical access, key codes, or representation of it in social media or social circles. You're insane, Caleb said, rising now, red-faced. You think we're going to sign this? You think? You're going to sign it, I said coolly, because if you don't, I file criminal charges for forgery, fraud, and trespassing. I hand over the footage. The documents. Everything. The county already has a soft copy. The moment I give the word, it becomes very, very real. I turn to Mom and Dad. You want to protect Caleb so badly? Then take the deal. Because otherwise, your golden boy might be spending his 27th birthday in court. They didn't speak. So I added one last thing. Oh, and by the way, that fake listing? It got picked up by a local real estate blog. A few of Grandpa's old friends saw it. Walt, the other guys from the bait shop. They're all talking now. About how the family tried to backstab me. About who Grandpa really trusted. The narrative? It's already turning. You've lost the room. Mom sank into the couch like a puppet with its strings cut. Dad looked like he wanted to say something, but all he did was rub his face and sit down beside her. And Caleb? Caleb walked out. Slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. I didn't follow him. I just waited. 10 minutes later, Dad asked for a pen. They signed. That evening, I made 3 phone calls. First to Elliot, to let him know it was done. He congratulated me and told me he hadn't had that much fun drafting a document in years. Second, to the county clerk, confirming that the charges wouldn't be filed unless needed, but that the evidence remained on record. And third, I called Lisa. She picked up on the first ring. Well, she asked. It's over. She didn't say anything right away. Then, softly, proud of you, Jeff. I felt that. Later that night, I stood on the dock alone. The lake was quiet, calm. The water reflected the stars, clear and undisturbed. Grandpa's voice echoed in my mind. You're the only one who gets it, Jeff. Do what's right with it. I smiled. I'd done what was right, and I'd finally been heard. The next morning, I changed the Wi-Fi name to Not Your Lake House. Just for fun.